Starting off with big forms is a great way to help you simplify your shapes and stop thinking them as objects. They're not umbrellas. They're a bunch of big dark masses that come together at the top and connect in a certain way. Same with at the bottom. If I squint my eyes really hard, I'm able to simplify a very busy scene and break it down into really geometric shapes, circles, rectangles, lines, triangles that are all interconnected in some way. And it just makes my job easier when I want to really quickly sit outside and paint a busy scene. I don't want to get lost in all the details. I really want to just try and simplify it and pick up some color information, get the feeling for the space, capture some information in my sketchbook, and take a photograph. And with those two things, I can come back to the studio and create a bigger, more final work. Every now and then I get lucky and one of my plein air pieces turns out nicely and I can frame it just as is. But most of the time my objective is not to worry about succeeding in the final product, but to try and get some information down that gives me that sense of space and time. I've really hyper observed while I was there, and then I've captured information that I can translate into a painting later. Anytime I have areas of color, even in a quick piece, if I at least have 3 values in those areas of color, those big shapes, that helps give me a sense of depth. So for example, I'll have a dark tone, a medium tone, and then a highlight. And for yellows, the best way to go usually is going to be either brown for a dark or orange for a dark. And depending on whether you've got a cool color temperature or warm color temperature, you could even lean towards greens in those yellows. So really try and pay attention to what you're seeing, really think about it, and then put in a brushstroke. Keep it abbreviated, really simplified. Squint. I couldn't say that enough times. Squint when you're looking at your scenes so that you really break things down into simple shapes. You see the mass instead of the detail. Sometimes those people, in the end, they're just a bunch of dots and pillowcases attached. So it's like their bodies are big pillowcases with their heads attached. And their heads don't usually sit right on top in the middle of those pillowcase shapes. They lean forward a little bit and look downward. Unless they're looking upward, of course. But a lot of times, even when people are walking, their heads tend to point downward just a little bit. So just dots and dabs. Putting in some value changes here and there for highlights, some shadow colors, and just, again, giving the impression of a bunch of people sitting there without getting mired in all the details, like somebody's ear, the shape of the chair, adding all the highlights for every single little piece of cutlery on the table. I just find that so overwhelming. And this, of course, is a sample that is so oversimplified. You could take more time and just add more detail as well. But to start off, if I go this way and just make it super simplified, big and blocky, then I can make my brushes smaller as I continue adding detail and just get thicker with the paint. And maybe even hone in on one area where I get more hyper detailed to create a focal point. I hope this helps. I hope this gives you an idea of how you can take a very busy piece like this photograph I have in the top left of a scene of a bunch of people sitting at a table on a sunny day and try to think of it in a more simplistic way so that you can paint on location, capture that information while you're there, and not have to worry about people getting up and moving away and not worry about capturing all those little details that would take hours. And instead, in 20 minutes or less, capture just a fun, spirited little piece like this.